Michelle's Whispers ASMR. Hello, welcome back to another video. My name is Michelle, and if you're new here, welcome. So happy that you're here, and I'm happy that you're joining me for today's very special video, a video that I have not yet filmed, but I plan on making this a series. So, if you're new and you enjoy the content, then do not hesitate to hit that subscribe button. Write in the comments. I love to connect with you. And without further ado, you already read in the title what this video is going to be about. So today's video is an ASMR neighborhood gossip video. And I'm also going to do some fluffy mic touching. This video idea originally stems from Southern Sounds ASMR. Soft ASMR does neighborhood gossip videos. Grace V, Morgan ASMR, I think, or Morgan Whispers. And I think her name is Maud ASMR. Discovered her channel recently. I'm obsessed. So good. But I'm gonna actually add a little twist because I have been moving around a lot in the last couple of years. So I thought, why not make this a series with like 20 to 30 minute length videos, because I'm gonna need a lot more than that to tell you about every single neighborhood that I've lived in, where I start from the beginning, kind of like being a teenager to being a young adult to now, and I tell you about places that I've lived and the neighborhood gossip that I've experienced there, what was going on in the neighborhood, or things that were going on just like that I've noticed, because I think that would be interesting, because yeah, I've just lived in a lot of different places with a lot of different people, and so it won't be a neighborhood gossip video where I just talk about like where I live right now and what's going on here, but I'm gonna actually take you to a little journey of the past, so it'll be a neighborhood gossip slash story time video, or videos, because I just don't think that I can tell you all about like the places I've lived in and stuff in one video. That will just not be enough. So that is the series that I'm planning on. I hope you are comfortable. Get yourself a tea or a coffee. I'm probably gonna do that next time. I didn't have the time right now. And sit back and relax and just enjoy the whispers. Enjoy the whispers. Okay. Oh, and little disclaimer. I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. I'm not trying to, I don't know, make assumptions. This is purely just for fun and entertainment and relaxation for you to tune out, fall asleep to, or just listen to me ramble while, I don't know, when I listen to Whisper Rambles, I sometimes clean up my room or do my makeup or something like that, you know. That's the purpose of this video, not talking badly about people or anything like that. I'm just gonna purely tell you my experience and what I thought of it, and yeah, that is a little disclaimer. Okay, I'm pretty sure Rach ASMR also has Whisper Rambles up. Okay, I'm gonna start with, I guess, my childhood, teenage years. I don't remember there being much gossip. I remember in the house that I grew up in, the neighbors would always, like, for Christmas, they would always decorate their house like very excessively, shared kitchen and we had shared bathrooms. I lived there for 1 year, but it was a really cool time. In the dorm, we had a bar room where every second Wednesday we would party, and you can get alcoholic drinks for a reasonable price, you know? Like a pretty good price for a student. And there was so much gossip in that dorm, which is part of the reason why I moved on, because I actually don't really like gossiping unless it's like celebrities or something, but if it's like real life, I usually don't really like that. So basically I was on the second floor, and like I said, you had to share the kitchen and the bathroom, and it was so crazy because even though there was a bunch of people living with me on the floor, I never saw anybody. Like, it was as if I was alone in the dorm. Like, there was really no one there. Like, sometimes you would see people in the kitchen, and usually it wasn't Germans, because the dorm, there was a lot of international students, which is pretty cool living in that dorm. So you would meet people from Africa, South America, from all over the world basically, and sometimes they would have little like cook sessions in the kitchen, which I found cool. And then at that bar party, I'm not really sure how much detail I should go in, but guys, you are my best friends, so so I was single at the time, and basically the gossip was that in the dorm there was a lot of mingling, you know, people that liked each other, people that were single and ready to mingle, and we were all early 20s. That's just what you do, I guess, right? And so I guess this is less the neighborhood gossip and more dorm gossip, but that's fine. So you know, you would go to like the bar night, and it would be like, oh, this guy likes that girl, and they're making out, and stuff like that. And there was actually, I had my own private little gossip going on, because I met my boyfriend at the time in that dorm. He already kind of had a little thing with another girl in the dorm. I'm not gonna say any names, but that girl had a boyfriend, and I'm not sure if the boyfriend knew, and I'm not really sure what was going on with that. But basically, he asked me for my number in one of the like bar nights or whatever, and then we started like hitting it off, like not right away, but like shortly after. And one night, the girl that he was having a thing with that had a boyfriend, she invited us over to her place because she lived in a little separate house. Like, we lived all in one dorm, like, building, but across from the building there was a separate house for people that wanted more like their own apartment kind of thing. And so it was just across from it, so we went there. And me and my ex-boyfriend, we kind of like started hitting it off in her apartment. Like, we started kissing and stuff, and then she like saw that and she started crying, and it was so dramatic. And I just remember in her room there was a big picture of her and her boyfriend, and I just felt so awkward and I felt so uncomfortable because I didn't really know what to do. And then after that, the mood or like the vibe in the dorm was kind of weird. I mean, we sorted it out, we talked about it. I think maybe she was just unhappy in a relationship or something. Like, I don't really know, and I don't really want to like judge that. But like shortly after, me and my at the time boyfriend made it official that we're together, and she kept like trying to things, and then things like that would happen all the time in the dorm, like girl makes out with guy, or oh, there's new people in the dorm. I remember that every semester there'd be new students coming to the dorm, so it was always really exciting to meet new people, and the age range was always from like 18 to like 30, you know, so because students aren't really always that young, like some people study when they're older, so that was always really, really interesting. And in the summer we would go outside of the dorm, we would play games together, like we actually did stuff together, not just, you know, we didn't just live together, we actually like, yeah, did a lot of stuff together. And there was one guy and he was really interesting, and I don't know whatever the deal was with him, but he had lived in Africa for like 6 months, and he would always motivate everybody, and he was about to go to Dublin, I think. Like there was just a lot of interesting people in there, and there was one German girl, and she kind of hit it off with this Brazilian guy, and they would always speak English, which I thought was cool. Like there was like a lot of internationals, a lot of international students, and yeah, like the gossip, I guess because this was my neighborhood at the time, because the dorm was on a hill, and next to the hill there was just the forest, so there wasn't really any other neighbors around, so that's the only thing I can tell you about the people that lived there. And yeah, then there was like one guy, and he was really like, there was two guys actually, and we kind of had nicknames for them because they both are like such educated and well, like they were like, the way that they spoke was so like well worded, and so we had like nicknames for them and we became friends, like, you know. And they actually, the first time that they saw me on like the bar night, and I was still in kind of like a partying phase where it's just about like drinking and making friends and, you know, that kind of stuff, and they were so different from everybody else, because the first time they met me they were like, oh, do you want to join our literature club? Like so well educated, you know, and well spoken. And we actually just did some fabric scratching. Yeah, we actually became good friends, and one of them, like, as I was single again, kind of started flirting with me a little bit, and we hung out once, and we just looked at pictures of his, like, Italy trip or something, and, like, 2 days later, he had a girlfriend. It was really, really awkward. I mean, like, my friend that still lived in the city, because I'd already moved out, she was like, yeah, I saw him holding hands with this girl and stuff. Like, there was just a lot of stuff like that, you know, because we were all, like I said, in our 20s, and I'm pretty sure that there was an incident where someone was punched, and I remember there was this one girl in the dorm that everybody just had problems with. I don't remember why, because she moved out pretty shortly after I had moved in, like maybe a couple months. I lived there in October 2016. So a long time ago. So yeah, there was this one girl that everybody just like had problems with, but I don't remember why. But there was basically, when I moved in, there was basically like a friend group of the people that had previously lived there before. Like before I moved in, there was this like friend group, and I think there was some dynamics that I didn't really understand because I hadn't been there before. But yeah, there's definitely, you know, a lot of stuff happening, couples forming. There was a lot of dorm couples, and you definitely, which I didn't really like, you definitely had to kind of pay attention to what you were doing and who you were talking to, because everybody in that dorm liked to gossip and gossip about like each other. I mean, I didn't ever really take part in it, but like center. So I lived like 10 minutes from the city center. It was really cool because there was a grocery store right next to the apartment. And I moved in with two girls, and they were both really, really chill. I didn't really talk too much with them because we talked a lot, but we didn't hang out that much, I guess, because they weren't in the city that much. They would go home a lot, so I was alone in the apartment a lot. But whenever we did hang out, it was chill and there wasn't many problems. So just had this little apartment, but our landlord was this 70-year-old lady who was kind of strange at times. I don't know how to even explain it. She always had red lipstick and like a lot of makeup, which isn't bad, but her vibe, it was like kind of fake. Like she would smile at you and she would be like, oh, hi and stuff, but she really, I think, like, didn't like us, but I don't think it was because of us. I think she was just like that with every apartment. So for example, she didn't want us to have parties there, which is understandable, but sometimes I would just have a couple of friends over. We would play tiny bit of music, and then she would come down in her white bathing robe, and knock on the door and be like, hello, so can you be quiet? Like that, like it wasn't authentic. She also like lived in the same apartment, so it wasn't like she just rented the apartment out of, and like she lived in the same apartment building, not the same apartment, the same apartment building. So it wasn't like, oh, she rented the apartment out, the apartment building out, and she wasn't ever there, so she could hear everything. And one time, I don't know how it happened, but one time I was hanging out with with other people in the apartment building, and we were in the apartment above us, and I accidentally dropped a beer bottle out of the window, and so it landed on our side of the roof. So there was just this broken beer bottle, and we just ignored it, and we just didn't talk to her about it. We just like completely ignored it, and I think she asked us like, whose beer bottle is this? But we just like ignored it. Most of the time we didn't have any problems with her, but it was a little iffy at times. Like she would come down and knock and stuff, not that often, but sometimes. And then when we moved out, she basically was looking, because like a deposit you give a person when you move into a rental place, you give someone a deposit, and then when you move out, if everything is in check, they give you the deposit back. And basically the apartment before we moved on, it was kind of shitty. Like the kitchen wasn't really that nice. Like I think the people that lived there before was like 3 guys, and they really didn't care about anything. And so like us problems. It was just so unpleasant and uncomfortable, and it was just like her vibe was just so fake, and you could just tell that she just wanted like our money and stuff, you know. I mean, obviously as a landlord, you know, but I don't know. I don't know. And then I moved back home for a little bit, so nothing special there. Like, besides the normal like family drama that you sometimes hear of, like people divorcing and stuff, nothing much. And then I moved to the US. And first I was in New York, but I was only there for 5 days, so, and we were just like in the school. And then I moved to Portland, and if you saw my US story time, I told you a little bit about living there with a host family and stuff. And I'm gonna get into some more tea. I'm gonna start and then I'm gonna continue in part 2 because this video is already almost 30 minutes long. So I'm gonna start telling you about that, and then if you wanna know how the story continues, you gotta subscribe, hit the bell, and wait for part 2. Part 2. And if you want part 2 to come very, very fast, then hit the like button so that I know that you enjoy the video. Okay, so basically I was 22. It is the year 2019. I had lived in the city, like I said, in the dorm and with roommates for about 3 years. And I was ready to do the next thing in my life, so I applied to become an au pair and found a host family. I can tell you about the whole process another time. I then moved in with them into a city called Portland, Oregon. Lived in Portland, Oregon. And they lived in a pretty big house. A little bit outside of Portland. I'm obviously not going to tell you like where exactly, but they lived outside of Portland in a quiet place. And there wasn't any, like there was neighbors, but there was a lot of space, so there wasn't really any neighbors around. And at first everything went well. I think I adapted pretty quickly. I know there was this one family that I frequently saw, but I don't know if there was any gossip. They were pretty, I mean, you could tell that they were a rich American family looking back on it, because they had a pool table and they had a hot tub and like all of that. And they also were thinking about getting an au pair, just like my host family. And the main like gossip would be when everything went down with my host family, but there was a few things that happened before that were already kind of iffy, because at the time, like I said, I was already 22, about to turn 23, and I already had experience living by myself, and sometimes I couldn't really cope with not being completely treated like an adult. I'm a very independent person, and if someone doesn't treat me like such, it can be difficult for me to manage. So at first everything was great, and we were just getting to know each other, my host family and I. And I have to say that most of the time that I had there was positive, and that they did put in an effort to include me and eat with me and stuff like that. But sometimes I felt kind of judged because, for example, I didn't eat healthy at the time. Looking back on it now, I don't know why I ate so unhealthy. I was already vegan sometimes they would make comments on like the vegan thing too, because they weren't vegan. Like they tried to eat healthy and stuff, but they weren't vegan, which is fine. But I just feel like if someone says, this is my diet preference, you know, just leave them alone. Like she would sometimes, because when you have a host family, they provide your food. You live with them for free, and so they have to buy the food for you, but you also make next to nothing. Like you don't really make that much money, so it like balances it out. But she would sometimes complain about like the vegan yogurt, because the vegan yogurt is like $1 or $2 more than the dairy yogurt. And she would sometimes like make comments on like, oh yeah, you're a fancy expensive vegan yogurt, although they were clearly rich. Like they would, like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but they clearly had money, because otherwise you can't really afford an au pair. And like now that I know more about the US and how the US works, like they clearly didn't struggle with money. I'm not saying they were like crazy rich, but they were definitely upper middle class. And yeah, so, and then sometimes when I would eat something unhealthy, like she would make comments about that, and like that's fine, like I get it, because healthy eating is important, and now I see it in that way too. But I just feel like you have to leave an adult alone. Like I wasn't their daughter, you know. I was basically just working for them and living with them. I was a stranger from a different country, so why would you comment on my food and like what I'm eating? Like I said, I see that my diet choices were poor, but at the time that was what I was choosing for myself, and I feel like you gotta just back off a little bit and like stop with the comments, you know. Like for example, I was on vacation with them and we got kind of stuck, and it was impossible to have like healthy food, because everything that was around was just like Burger King and McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, and I think I got like fries, I don't remember, something. And then like my host mom was like, well, I'm getting the salad, and like you're the unhealthiest vegan I've ever met and stuff. And it's like, okay, but why do you have, like, she was acting like she was my mom. Like, why do you have to point that out to me? I'm 22 years old, you know? Just stuff like that. And like it got, like, it was so weird because she got me a vegan cookbook for Christmas, so that was really nice. And like most of the time, like I said, they were really nice to me. But then she would make comments like, oh, you being vegan is you're excluding us from cooking with you and stuff. And it was just like, it just didn't really make sense to me. And then when COVID hit, things got worse, but I'm gonna get into that the next time when we're gonna do neighborhood gossip. And yeah, like I said, it's less neighbors and more people I've lived with, because like I don't really know what's going on with the neighbors around me, or I don't know most of the time. But I can get into that a little more too, because we're not at the end. This is just